You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A Radiant Creator isn't making a living, they are living.
Well, Crypto Lark, welcome to Radiant Creators. It's amazing to have you on the show. Crypto Lark has, of course, on YouTube, Crypto Lark. Search that, you're going to find it. He's got a plethora of videos. And what I like about Crypto Lark here is his great saying of stacks, here we go, stack, sats, and chill. You say it better than I do. So are you stacking sats and chilling today in this epic day in the market?
Absolutely, I am. Look, I can't claim a credit for that, saying without a doubt. Max Kaiser and a lot of the people, they've been saying that for quite a while. But the idea of stack, sats, and chill is really about the long-term vision of Bitcoin. The day-to-day price action, I mean, sure, I do a little bit of trading once in a while, but realistically, that's a tiny, tiny percentage of my overall portfolio. And I look at the long-term vision of Bitcoin. I have a certain amount of Bitcoin when I get Bitcoin, and I say, okay, well, this fraction over here is for trading. And if that Bitcoin disappears, well, that's okay. Most of it is going into a long-term cold storage. Most of it is here for the future, right? I look at the banking system, I look at everything that's going on, and I go, oh my God, there's so much dysfunction going on out there. This is my hedge against that global dysfunction, against the greed of the commercial banks and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, and that's a great thing about Crypto Lark's YouTube is you get to hear all that passion about the banks and our financial institutions and how it all works, how governments manipulate fiat. So definitely, I like that Crypto Lark here is outspoken, because a lot of crypto, YouTube channels, they're just talking about the price, daily, is it up or is it down? They're rather focused, and there's nothing wrong with having a brand like that. Like I'm focused on this, and this is what I talk about, but your channel is really expansive. I mean, you're really talking about what is fiat currency, what are the issues with that, why banks aren't so great, and then why crypto is good, along with new crypto projects, etc. How did you? I wonder. I follow your channel for a while, but I haven't followed it forever. Did you start small and then kind of get so expansive with your channel? Has it always been this wide, or has it just gotten wider?
It's always been this wide, I think. And one of the things I think I decided early on was to not become another TA channel. And look, that has its own sort of drawbacks, because realistically, TA channels are more popular than channels like mine, which kind of talk about the big picture and banks and all that stuff. Because most people just want someone else to tell them how to make money tomorrow or today to get rich overnight. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. If you're going to YouTube to try and get your trading advice, you're probably not going to do very well, because you have to be making your own decisions when it comes to trading. You have to spend that time to learn what the heck is actually going on. But regardless, the TA channels remain quite perennially popular. I understand why. People, they want to know what's going on. They want someone to tell them what to think about the price. I get it. But I've always really been more mission driven, I think, with cryptocurrency, in the terms that I look at it and I think, okay, look at the macro picture politically of what's going on globally. Look at the ability of the technology to fundamentally shake things up in terms of providing access to financial services to billions of people who are underserved and are simply going to leapfrog the banking architecture in the same way that hundreds of millions to billions of people have leapt right over the old telephone system. Right? There are places, countries in Africa and countries in Asia and countries in South America, for example, they never laid down telephone lines. They just went straight to mobile networks, right? I remember there's a great story. I think it was Nigeria. I'm pretty sure it was Nigeria. And in the early 2000s, they had like 1,500 total, 1,500 phones in the entire country, right? It's all run on landlines. And then they opened up the market, they deregulated, they let the mobile companies in, and now it's one of the biggest mobile phone markets in the world, right? Because they deregulated and they let people just do that leapfrog. Cryptocurrency is going to do the same thing in terms of its ability to totally revolutionize the way we understand finance, to break down those barriers. Most people live in walled gardens, stuck in crappy fiat currencies, and man, they need help. And this is what keeps me going in cryptocurrency. Like, yes, I'm going to take the side bonus of being able to invest and change my own financial destiny. That's cool too. I dig that as well. I'm all about that. But what keeps me here making videos day to day, it's the bigger picture. I love that. I love what's going on. I love how crypto is shaping the world around us, even if it's still small.
Oh yeah. Well, when it comes to people watching, TA on YouTube, I mean, there are some people who do great TA, some people who don't do great TA. I mean, there's a full range out there, from masters to shillers. There's a lot out there. But I have found that you really don't get anything in life without wiping some sweat off your brow. You're going to have to work at it. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's impossible at all. It just means that it takes effort. Everything has this cost, and that's basically effort to me. And something that I'm seeing a lot is you have psychics and secret algorithm people who are selling, signals. And I watch them. Maybe it's an evil fetish or something, but sometimes I'll watch that stuff because I'm just curious, out of curiosity. I'm like, man, they are running people off a cliff, and don't they have any morality or any sense of what they're doing? But it just seems to me that it's a universal law, and I'm pretty out there. I'm pretty spiritual, but at the same time, this is reality. It's good to be grounded in it, and you're going to have to do some work. But if you do, yeah, crypto is a great place to be, because if you put some effort forth, you really can affect your financial destiny quite a lot.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's all these different, there's TA channels, and there's altcoins and IEOs and all this stuff going on. And this is the thing, I spend this is my thing. This is what I do, right? I spend all my time doing this. I'm in the markets, my head's in it all the time. I'm thinking about it all the time. And even then, I find it hard to keep up with the amount of innovation going on, with the amount of new projects coming out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this goes back to the idea of stack, stats, and chill. Like, if you're just a dude and you're working a regular job and you don't have crazy amounts of time to put into teaching yourself how to do technical analysis, to learning about all these different risk management strategies, and, to actually really do deep fundamental research on these different cryptocurrency projects and stuff like that, you should just be buying and holding Bitcoin and nothing else. Like, that's it. That's all you need to do. Just $50 a week, whatever your number happens to be, and just sit on it. And that's it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm sure that you get people who ask you that question quite a lot. They say, well, I just want to get in, but I don't want to do TA. I just want to get in. I want to get into crypto. I want to be involved in some way. I want to invest. And I know that's always my advice too, is just the whole dollar costing averaging. I'm always kind of, just take the very, very simple approach. Other people give Coinbase a hard time, but I'm like, sign up and just, because you can set weekly or monthly whenever you want, and you can just buy and just forget about it on purpose. Just forget about it. I did that for a couple of years. I honestly wasn't paying attention, and I was trading every day and such. I was actually in the market, and I trade for a living. I'm kind of I guess you'd say, not exactly a scalper, sort of a short trader, because that's just kind of how it is right now with altcoins and such. You're not going to be in very long before they're negative again. So, I'm sitting here, working my ass off for a couple % over and over and over again.
Yep.
That's fine because it works. But at the same time, I was stacking sats and chilling on Coinbase, and I just forgot about it. And I looked and I was like, holy crap.
That's amazing.
I was like, why'd I even bother with this trading crap? I'm like,
well, you make such a damn good point right there. And that's the thing, I think a lot of people, when they start thinking about trading and stuff, like, I'm going to become rich overnight. Like, no, actually, the best traders are out there. They're making, a couple % a day, right? And you're spending all day in front of a computer, looking at computer screens, trying to out-trade the market by a couple of percentage points. And you can do it. Takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of risk management, takes a lot of good strategies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it can be very profitable. But at the same time, for most people, just do that, set it and forget it. And you come back in 2 years' time, like, holy cow, I've got all this Bitcoin. And you look at dollar cost averaging on Bitcoin over time. I mean, basically, if you had been buying $50 a week worth of Bitcoin every Friday when you get your paycheck or whatever it might be for the past 2 years, you're up you're up, you're in profit right now. You know, Bitcoin just went down by 20% or whatever. It doesn't matter. You're still in profit. It's crazy.
Oh, you absolutely are. And yeah, so that's my advice for people who are just interested in getting in somehow and they don't want to trade, because really I don't quite buy that 95% of traders lose money. I'm not sure how they get that number, because it doesn't seem like anybody would even trade. Nobody would. It wouldn't work. It seems like that's more based on you lose money sometimes. That seems like what makes more sense to me. I always wonder where that was derived from, because it just seems like everybody says that 95% of traders lose money. Well, every trader loses money. But what do
Yeah.
you mean by 95%? As in, like, they go, I never understood that. I'd love to actually find out where the hooks for that are, like where the actual measurements are for that.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Where are the actual metrics on that? Because that's the thing is, you look at, you know, if you're doing trading well, right, you're using good risk management strategies. And like, I look at my trades, right, and I lose a majority of my trades, I would say, but I lose them at 2% or 3. And then the ones that it averages out to where you're winning, right? The ones that you win on, that's where you lose. So I might lose 55% of my trades or whatever, but the other 45% I win at a bigger percentage, and your overall time span, you do better off. But yeah, so it's interesting. Where do they get these numbers? I think definitely that kind of that statistic, it was definitely interesting. Where does that come from? Because certainly I think it scares a lot of new people off, and new people should be, cautious of just jumping into trading. I mean, I know certainly when I started off, I'm just like, I'm just going to throw some money in and make money trading cryptocurrencies. I had no idea what I was doing, right? But you've actually got to take that time to learn those skills over time. And it's a learnable thing. I think this is one thing that a lot of people kind of feel like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. You could do that. Anyone can do it, right? It's a question of being dedicated, taking the time, learning the indicators, learning what to watch for, learning the skills, practice trading. Actually, I think that's something that a lot of people miss out on, is you don't actually have to put, all your money into trading on day one. You can just put in like $100 or something and just practice on very small trades to see how your strategies actually play out. Or you can use, there's a few different services that actually have test accounts, right? Like 3 Commas is a service that I use to help automate my trading, but they've also got a great testnet account where you can just, they give you like, 10,000 play dollars, and you can just play. You can just play and have fun and test your strategies out. And I think that's really important for new traders getting in too.
Oh, it definitely is. So how did you create your channel? What led you to, to create the Crypto Lark channel? What was that catalyst?
Well, basically back in the day, I was doing Steam It because I was like, oh, this is great. Just have fun blogging, and I like doing that kind of stuff anyway. So I was just blogging about different stuff. And it's funny because I don't even use Steam It anymore. But I was blogging about just different kind of stuff back in the day, and travel stuff or whatever it might be, and you get earning a few bucks for the posts in Steam. And basically, I started just every once in a while I'd talk about Bitcoin, and I saw those posts were really popular, and then people start asking questions in the comment section over on Steam It, and they say like, oh, well, what do you think about this coin, or how do you do this, or whatever it might be. And so I said, man, I spent a lot of time writing these blogs all the time. So I'm just going to maybe record a video, because I'll be able to say what I want to say a lot quicker than I'd be able to write it out. And so I started actually uploading videos on YouTube in order to be able to post them over on Steam It, ironically. And then very quickly, it's, people over on YouTube started making comments like, oh my God, what about this thing and that thing? And so then, yeah, it just kind of grew from there, really.
What year was that? Was that
that was 2017. That was July 2017.
And so do you think that through interest in crypto, it seems that way from watching your channel, but I would definitely ask, are people realizing how the world works via involvement in crypto? Because I know for me, it was a huge eye-opener. I've learned a lot about how the world works, and a lot of it's not really pretty.
No, I think definitely I see a lot of comments like that. It's the old saying, come for the sick gains, stay for the financial revolution, something like that anyway. but I definitely see a lot of people who they're new to crypto. I see new people coming into crypto all the time on a daily basis. There are new people coming who have never bought a dollar worth of Bitcoin until today. And they're coming in, and they're coming in because they've heard about Bitcoin and they want to understand more about it. And, especially when the price goes up, ironically. There were a lot more people coming in when Bitcoin was at $13,500 than there'll be coming in today when Bitcoin's at $8,200 or whatever it is, which is such an ironic thing because now is the time when people should be interested, but it's not how the herd mentality works. Unfortunately, when the price goes up, everyone wants to buy it. When the price goes down, nobody wants to buy it. Why? Why humanity? Why psychology works like this? But it does.
Yeah, and people will say when it's up, they'll always be waiting for that next dump. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a trader, and I know you can make money shorting if it goes down, but I kind of cringe whenever I hear somebody say, oh, I hope Bitcoin goes to 3K or this or that. And I'm like, I don't. It can, but could you just please stop putting that intention out there?
I'm okay if it doesn't do that again.
Yeah, it's all right, and then I'll say, well, if you hope it goes to 3K or 5K so that you can stock up, why didn't you stock up when it was 3K for what months? I forget how long it was 3K, but it was 3K and 5K and 7K.
There was a lot of buying opportunity to get Bitcoin under $5,000. And it's interesting because a lot of it just plays out time and time again. At $20,000, there are all kinds of people who are saying, oh, I wish I'd bought Bitcoin at $10,000. I wish I'd bought Bitcoin at 5,000 or 3,000 or whatever it is. And then it actually comes to that situation and you find out that a lot of those people, some of them are true, right? Some of those will actually go, oh, wow, it's back. I'm going to buy it now. Not many though. Not many. Most people just sit around whimsically saying, oh, well, if only, regret, excuses. They never actually take charge of their financial destiny. It's the market, and, whatever it is, somebody out there, they're pulling the strings and screwing me over. And I bought Bitcoin I went all in at the top, and now I've lost all my money because I sold it at $10,000. And that's why dollar cost averaging stuff is so powerful, because you just give yourself that price exposure over time of an asset that is in the early stages still. And I know it's hard for some people to even hear, but we are still in the early stages of price discovery for Bitcoin. We still have a couple of decades before we probably actually establish a price level for Bitcoin where it's kind of just chilling. We'll still move up by a couple percentage points, whatever it might do, but it's not going to be doing these 20% drops and stuff like this. There will come a time, if Bitcoin succeeds, there will come a time when that happens.
Yeah. Is there anything else is there any other crypto that you would dollar cost average in as kind of long-term investment? I mean, for me, it's only Bitcoin as far as the dollar cost averaging.
Yes, in terms of dollar cost averaging, not particularly. I mean, there's a couple that I've added to on dips, things like Cardano and Ethereum. I'm quite happy to hold those as longer term potential projects. I've got a bag of Monero I've been holding on to for a while, and a bag of Beam as well, which basically I look at those privacy coins as specific use cases for things I would like to have, basically. And some other of the small market cap stuff that I've got in my portfolio, I've got a plan. That's going to be sold. It's not going to be in my portfolio in 10 years,
Yeah, no, Beam is cool. I like the privacy coins. You got, I think the big ones, well, of course there's Monero, but there's Beam, there's, and Grin, of course. And the other one, I forget which, Veil. Zcash, and there's Veil, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually was, I like to mine. So actually this is my office and mining room. So all the miners get turned off when I talk to people. So
I'm costing you money.
So actually, yeah, they do cost money. I wish I could say lots of money. I'm losing thousands of dollars, but no, I may lose 8 cents while we're talking.
It's not that bad.
That's a lot of mining power, actually, unfortunately. But yeah, Beam and the different privacy coins are great. And those are ones that I really wonder about. What do you think on the privacy coins? Because I think about Grin, Beam, Veil, Zcash, etc. Now, these are privacy coins that the governments do not like, because exactly that, they're privacy coins, they're privacy, that's private transactions. Now it seems that since you're KYCing on exchanges, if you're buying and trading them there, well, they know what you're doing. They're not really private there. But what do you think their future is? Because I mean, if you have your own wallet, and that's something I like about mining, is if you're mining, then what you're mining, no one really knows that you're mining it, and you're putting it in your wallet, and that really is a privacy coin. But if you bought it on an exchange, sorry, that ain't private. You blew it.
Yeah, it depends, right? Because if you buy, for example, Monero on an exchange, well, they know that you bought Monero, but once you've withdrawn that Monero, it disappears forever, right? They don't know where it went or who's got it, or
Okay.
I mean, they assume it goes to you, right? But it may not. You may have sent it to God knows who, right? It, whereas with things like Zcash and Dash, for example, when they're withdrawn from an exchange, there is no option to do a private transaction, so they know exactly where that money went. Now, if we talk about the FATF and their guidelines, this is where we are going to start to see a lot of situations happening. We've already seen Upbit and another Korean exchange. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but we've seen multiple Korean exchanges now delisting privacy coins because they're worried about the FATF's travel rule. And unfortunately, privacy coins do not easily fit into that. Bitcoin does, because Bitcoin's pseudo-anonymous, and the government via the FATF is working very quickly on de-anonymizing Bitcoin addresses, because what they're going to have in a couple of years is a database of every exchange account and every wallet account, and they're going to have IDs locked up to those addresses. Now, you and I may not be able to see that, but the government's going to have it, right? And they're already able to pretty easily access that kind of information for a lot of accounts, but not everyone, not everywhere. They're working on that, right? They want wallet providers, whether it be Ledger or Exodus, to participate in this. They want all the major exchanges to be participating in this system, which is going to de-anonymize basically all cryptocurrencies, which is where the privacy coins come in. Because if you're buying your Monero over on Binance, at some point, Binance is probably also going to have to follow these FATF guidelines. You might see things like Monero being delisted because it is such a powerful privacy coin, and they are not going to be able to follow those FATF regulations, which means that privacy coins, ironically, they're going to lose a lot of liquidity in the short term, but I think in the long term, they're going to remain probably even more popular than they are now because of that privacy feature. Because when you have Bitcoin being de-anonymized by the FATF travel rule, people will still want private money, right? People will still want that cash option, because Monero is the equivalent of giving some, me giving you $5 in a room where there's no one else, right? Nobody knows about that. You just get your $5. Whereas this is the equivalent of putting banking architecture on top of Bitcoin, where they're going to know all the transactions, who has what.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can simply look at a blockchain explorer, Bitcoin blockchain explorer, and you can see everything that's going on. Like there's one wallet I always like to look at. I don't know why, but it has $1 billion worth of Bitcoin in it, and I just think it's cool. I just kind of like to look at it every day, and it just means the world is still there to me. I don't know. One day it'll be gone. I'll be crushed or something.
Where did it go? What have they done with it?
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, especially with privacy coins, I think ones that can be mined, like Beam and such, mineable coins, and I guess Zcash is also, but especially Beam, Grin, I think, and Veil, those, since you can have your own wallet that you download and you have your own, public-private keys, well, basically the equivalent, and you are using those, that's great, because miners make it, miners have it, and then they can sell it anonymously, you might say. And so I wonder if that economy will actually sort of keep going, if there really will be kind of a global anonymous economy. It just seems like, see, that's where I think people start getting into crypto, and a lot of people are getting into crypto. Everybody wants to get into crypto. I mean, if you talk about crypto on your YouTube channel, which of course you do, and we talk about it on our Sum, I mean, you're going to get a lot of incoming questions. How do I get into crypto? There is no area of life of humanity that has not asked me, how do I get into crypto?
Mm-hmm.
So with so many people getting into crypto, I think one of the things, and I'd ask if you found this, is one of the things that people quickly realize is you have no privacy, and that ultimately governments really do control you through monitoring every single transaction you make.
Yeah, it's scary, the level of really the level of surveillance going on right now. And it's unfortunate because they always say, oh, it's for the money launderers or it's for the bad guys somewhere, but the reality has not been that. The reality has been actually a massive surveillance network of average citizens doing average things. And that has become criminalized. Well, we know without a doubt the big banks are the ones who are committing the fraud left, right, and center. And the big banks are the ones who continue time and time and time again to launder the money. These banks have all been caught. Every single major commercial bank has been caught laundering money and fined for laundering money dozens of times in massive scandals, multi-billions of dollars to trillions of dollars laundered. I mean, they launder what, 5 trillion a year or something through London, right through the front door of the bank, right through the front door of the bank. And yet our privacy for regular people has to be called into question because, you know, Bitcoin's going to help money launderers, right? It's not. Bitcoin doesn't help money launderers. And as we see these FATF regulations roll out, it's definitely not going to help money launderers because everything is going to be, you know, attached to a person at that point, which not good, but it's unfortunately what's coming.
Except for privacy coins, maybe.
Except for privacy coins.
Except, you know, maybe depending on how they're handled. Yeah, I've always kind of had a feeling that, you know, who knows, maybe 5 years, 10 years in the future, let's say, there'll probably be maybe less cryptocurrencies than there are today, maybe. But I think that for sure, one thing that is certain is there'll be ones that come to prominence that that do not exist today.
Yeah.
You know, or aren't really even thought of today, you know. So yeah, whenever privacy becomes outlawed, it just seems to me that that is something that the crypto community is aware of. Because I think that you termed it, there's a YouTube that you did from oil crisis. Oil crisis good for price of Bitcoin. The war on privacy heats up, and you mentioned the fiat currency matrix. And so once people kind of get into crypto, it's like Neo. They wake up, that pot opens, and they go, "Oh my God," you know, and then they realize, "Oh, I don't have privacy at all. I don't. It doesn't exist," you know, and when a government, and I think it's that moment when you've broken from the fiat currency matrix that you realize that, you know, privacy being outlawed is bad.
Yeah, it's horrendous. And everything's been turned on its head. We live in that 1984 Orwellian world where everything's backwards. Nothing makes sense because the government gets to have privacy on almost all matters, right? They get to do all these spying operations in secret on citizens and all this stuff. But you as a citizen have no privacy. The government gets to spy on you. The big tech companies get to spy on you. I mean, the only privacy you have is against other citizens. So, you know, I don't know how much money is in your bank account. You don't know how much money is in my bank account. But we also have no idea what the governments are doing. The organizations we're theoretically in charge of as citizens are running amok. And these massive institutions like the banks, they're also running amok. You know, they're the ones who have privacy. Regular citizens, not so much. I like there's an old saying which I've liked to modify for, you know, Monero basically and other privacy coins. But when Monero's outlawed, only outlaws will have Monero.
Oh, and it's completely true. Yeah, Monero and I guess miners, outlaws and miners. You know.
Well, that's the thing is they can't stop it, right? This is what it comes down to. They'll be able to reduce liquidity for privacy coins, but they'll never be able to stop them because anybody can just mine them at home. And Monero's got so good now that they even I don't know if they've implemented it yet or if I haven't checked in on what they're doing with the code recently, but I know they were going to implement it. So whether it's happened yet or it's going to happen very soon, basically Monero is now going to be so private that when you send a transaction, it actually obfuscates the internet traffic as well, so that if somebody's watching your internet traffic for privacy coin transactions in particular, they won't see that. It'll just come through as a normal data packet. So it won't actually be seen that it's a Monero transaction going on. It'll just appear as normal internet traffic. So they've actually coded that into Monero, or it's going to be coded in very soon. So that's, you know, the war on privacy. I think Fluffy Pony, he actually says, he's the developer of Monero for anyone who doesn't know, lead developer of Monero. Privacy, there's no end game, right? It's a constant moving landscape where, you know, they come out with new code, then the government comes out with new code, and the banks come out with new code, and then they need to come out with new code to stay ahead of that. And it's this constant moving battle of trying to ensure privacy in the digital age. It's really hard.
Yeah, one thing I like about it is it brings back a little bit of cunning to humanity, because humans are very cunning. We are really hard to pin down, really hard to trap if we want to be free. And then one thing I like about crypto is I really do consider it the peaceful revolution. I mean, I think maybe it's our first ever truly peaceful revolution. I mean, would you consider crypto a peaceful revolution, and how is that revolution going?
That revolution's going, I think, in a very positive direction right now. And you can see that the revolution, the movement, if you will, is already trying to be co-opted. I mean, Backed is the perfect example, right? All these Wall Street derivative products and stuff that are coming out, and the futures contracts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. None of that stuff is as a net positive. Okay, it's bringing more liquidity into the Bitcoin markets. Great, we have liquidity. Fantastic, right? But realistically, Bitcoin's it's a vote out of the system, right? And going and buying a Bitcoin futures contract on the Intercontinental Exchange, that is a vote that you want to see the corruption of the current banking system continue. Even though, okay, sure, they're selling the tools of the revolution. Great. Doesn't help anything, right? We have the ability to fundamentally alter our society. And look, I like to future-proof ideas, right? Is this something that'll make sense in the future, right? The idea of electing other people who are easily corruptible, non-transparent, to make all decisions for hundreds of millions of people, it's an outdated concept. It's not going to stand the test of time. And that might shock some people who are listening to this, but it's simply not going to stand the test of time. As we move forward, technology is going to allow us to make better, more informed decisions and actually empower citizens. I am a massive believer in the concept that we as citizens can actually take care of our own governance. We don't need politicians and unaccountable government structures to be out there making those decisions for us. Blockchain technology can be a big part of this moving forward. And, Bitcoin as a global currency, I think, is also incredibly likely to happen at some point.
I think so, definitely, because even if you got backed, and even if you have financial institutions that mess with Bitcoin, they can't print more, they can't create more, they can't make it fiat. They can build layers of abstraction around it, but they can't affect it. It's not theirs, which is a wonderful thing, And yeah, crypto definitely is like a splinter in people's minds, like I say in the Matrix. It's just like splinter of freedom, and it is a piece of revolution, because I think really so many people will look around and say, man, the world is messed up. And then somebody will say, well, it didn't just happen,
Yep.
And there's agreement. And so I do think that, yes, people actually really can govern themselves. I think that I don't like the term anarchist because it's too loaded, and I'm not even really sure what that means. A lot of people have a lot of different definitions for that.
Yeah.
So I don't really use it. I just think that I don't think humanity needs governments. I think it's dated. And so for me, I look at it like I spent like 4 months in Somalia right after it fell apart. So right after the end of Black Hawk Down, that movie, I was there for like 4 months, and there was no government. There was nothing at all. And it was a disaster, yes. But you know what? I learned something profound, that people do better without law. They do better without government. They do better without any of that crap. Because humans are a natural government. They do it as just basically for the good. At first there was some chaos, but then people go, wait a second, well, we want roads to work. Electricity is pretty cool. I like when I flush the toilet if it goes somewhere, It's like, it's maybe, it's funny, but really without control, people are harmonious. It's a wild vision, I know, but that I just believe that they are. And so that's what I like about the crypto revolution, or crypto as a peaceful revolution, is I don't know what I can do to bring that world forth more than just basically dollar cost average Bitcoin and be part of that community. Because and it just leads me down different paths that help me create the world I want.
I think you make a really good point about basically people are going to be okay. We're actually a lot cleverer than we are given credit by governments and all these people. And making a decision once every 4 years about how the future of the world should be for the next 4 years is freaking insanity. We live in the year 2019. We need responsive decisions, and we can have that kind of consensus. And actually, I think one interesting thing about Bitcoin, and you see what's happening with the New York Fed right now. They put up $750 billion. Just, hey, there you go. I mean, there's no money for, education, and there's no money for, better infrastructure, and there's no money for clean water in Flint, Michigan, all this stuff, right? Oh, banks are in trouble. Oh, here's all the money you need. No questions asked. It's quite funny, actually. But you look at that in the context of Bitcoin. There is a real capability for the banks and for Wall Street to gobble up insane amounts of Bitcoin, which is why I think the hodlers of last resort are such a damn important part of the Bitcoin ecosystem. Like, I've got a certain amount of Bitcoin, I'm not going to sell it. It's just, what I look at is a future potential where I would exchange it with someone else who I know is not going to just then flip around and sell it for a big stack of fiat. I want to buy a house from someone who wants to accept Bitcoin because they want to hold Bitcoin, right? And if you have enough people who are in that system, who are acting as hodlers of last resort, who are not just going to immediately flip over and sell it to Wall Street because they can print money to infinity. This is the thing. Those guys, they all they have to do is call up their local central bank office or Federal Reserve branch and just say, hey, we need hundreds of billions of dollars. Please give it to us. And they just get it without question. That is insane.
Yeah, it's endless games have been played for quite a long time with money that is not real. And I believe it comes to more than 75 billion a day, but I forget what day it started, but it's 75 billion a day in mostly repos, which I don't totally understand what they are, but 75 billion a day into the market until I believe November 10th. And what I noticed was, well, for one thing, like, what the crap is wrong? What do you need 75 billions a day to stay afloat, right? I thought the market was doing great. And I think one thing about crypto is if people do get into trading, especially, and if they get into, the wider aspects of crypto and looking at things like you're covering on your channel, they start to question these things, like $75 billion a day. When did this start? Who screwed up? Why do we need that? Why are we out of luck without that? And I looked at the S&P 500. People can if they're in TradingView or just do SPX, it'll bring it up against the US dollar. And since that quantitative easing, I believe, started, since that 75 billion a day started, I'm watching the S&P start to go down every day. So it's been doing well. I mean, over a short amount of time, it has actually done a lot of percent. It's been doing well, but it kind of, there's something about getting into crypto that really changed my life. And then it gave me a much broader perspective about what world governments are doing and what's going on and what the market is. Because I'm like, why are we putting this much money in? Why do we need it? Why are we screwed without it? And why, as we're putting it in every day, the S&P daily keeps going down towards a point where it's going to break certain, support levels, which will, get people will start noticing. Like, it's a weird world. Something's not right.
Yeah. What's going on out there? Well, when the overnight repo markets went into trouble the other day, I thought, well, this is actually something much bigger than is being talked about right now. And you can look back to the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis, where you had something which was abstract, right? It wasn't like, the stock market's crashed. Everyone understands that, right? But when you start saying, well, there's a lot of trouble in the subprime lending space, and it's like, what the frick is a subprime? But what is this abstract thing that the banks are doing that is going to crash the global economy? The overnight repo markets are a similar kind of thing, where basically at the end of the day, banks normally trust each other, right? JP Morgan looks over to Bank of America and they say, well, hey, we've both got these obligations that, might be counterbalanced, whatever. You've got the equity, you've got the cash, you've got position. Everyone's good. We're all good. We all trust each other overnight. No dramas, right? And then for some reason last week, everybody woke up and they just said, I don't trust you. And they said, well, it's good because I don't trust you either. And we certainly don't trust that guy over there. We don't think anyone's good for it. And that is worrying, because remember back in 2008 during the subprime mortgage crisis, all of the major ratings agencies, they were in on the scam. This is the thing. They were rubber stamping everything that they got from these banks. They were rubber stamping this bad debt and saying, it's all good. That's fine. Like, no, it's not. You're just rubber stamping. You're not even looking at it. It's obviously bad debt. And everybody was just saying everything is fine until the Titanic hit a freaking iceberg, right? And then the ship sank. And the same thing might be happening here, where everyone just, everything's fine. It's not fine if you're dumping $750 billion into the market to add liquidity because the banks all of a sudden stopped trusting each other last week. You need to ask why the banks stopped trusting each other. And that question, unfortunately, is not being asked in mainstream media, because it's a question that they don't want to ask. Because they start asking that question, they might get answers, and the answers they're probably not going to like.
Yeah, I would be surprised to hear those answers on the mainstream media, but it could happen.
That's not going to happen. Not until after the fact. Then they'll be like, why didn't anyone see this coming? Why wasn't anyone talking about this month ago? You were the ones who were supposed to be talking about it. Why didn't you ask those questions?
And then it was that person's fault. No, that person's fault. All right. You know what? It was privacy's fault. That's who did it. You know,
come from an arrow. Come from an arrow.
That's it. It was Bitcoin.
Some mid-level guy is going to take a fall. The CEOs are all going to get, giant golden parachutes. Oh, you guys all messed up. Here's $100 million for screwing up so bad. Please leave, and then we'll get someone else in to screw up again. Yeah. They'll buy stocks when they're worth nothing. They'll foreclose on a bunch of people's homes. A bunch of people will lose their jobs, and more wealth will simply move up.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned the Titanic hits the iceberg and sinks, because there's been recent research that's been done, and there's a theory that possibly why the Titanic was going so fast was not to set a record. Actually, we oftentimes think it was going fast to show off. It was bad judgment of the captain. There's a lot of these theories, right? A new theory has come out that actually it was going so fast because it didn't have enough coal to go slow. That actually it was running at a deficit, and they couldn't afford to put enough coal in it to actually go the proper speed. So it was rushing breakneck speed because I guess actually technically that was less resistance and took less coal, and they had just enough to make it. It was running on the edge of its seat, and that's why it was going so fast, and that's why it crashed. Just a thought. New theory.
Yeah.
How far can you push it before you got to start printing 75 billion a day? Well, something about the hodlers of last resort that you mentioned that speaks to me is I have this, just call it a gut feeling. I don't know how exactly. I've never really put hooks into it. I've been meaning to actually, it's on my notes. I want to actually try to measure this thing along with my little YouTube on, is 95% of all traders losing money true? Like, where's that? Let's get a real number. Where would that come from? I also want to do one on when would Bitcoin run out. What I mean by that is the hodlers of last resort, where I think they're going to make big money, those who are dollar cost averaging or have some or are smart enough to keep it. It's people who really, like you mentioned, like what $100 will buy you as far as in sats. Like I think 100 is about 1,000 sats right now, or maybe a little less than 800.
I guess it's about $80 for a million Satoshis today.
Yeah, so $80 for a million Satoshis. That doesn't seem like anything today, but if you're dollar costing that, I think we're going to see 1,000 sats very differently in a couple of years,
Yeah.
And I think that the hodlers of last resort, what happens that day when Bitcoin liquidity slows down, when if you want a Bitcoin, you just can't buy it. I just have that vision of if we look at how many are being bought right now and how many are being created and how many can be created. If you just do a graph and say, when are we going to get to a point, especially if interest gets even, much, much greater as more people get into Bitcoin, what if by 2020 something, if you want one, this is too bad. It may not be so easy to get. And I think the moment that liquidity, the moment somebody wants to buy some Bitcoin on an exchange and, I can't, or I can't get all I want, I think we're just going to see, that's when I think the value is going to just skyrocket and go crazy. Because right now, if you want it, you can get it. What happens when you can't exactly just get it?
Well, it's already a situation of if you want it, you can't get it at a certain volume, right? And this is the thing is Bitcoin is actually working perfectly at the moment. And this is the interesting thing. We've had X amount of Bitcoin, which has been lost. They're the stones of Yap under the water. They're providing this floor of value, but they're not going to come back into the market, right? We have hodlers of last resort who are not going to be selling their Bitcoin at the first, bit of turbulence, right? We have the block reward, which is, halving every 4 years like clockwork, right? And that next halving event's coming up pretty soon. And we already have a situation where basically what you're talking about is where it's going to get to the point where the average Joe is not able to go out and get Bitcoin easily. And that, I think, is where, that's probably a few decades away. But right now, if you are a billionaire and you want to buy $500 million worth of Bitcoin, that's already a pretty damn tough ask, because where are you going to get it from? Who's going to sell that to you, right? That you can't just go and do that today. If you did that on one exchange, you go over to Coinbase, put in a $500 million buy order, that's going to move the markets a lot, right? That's not what you want to do, because you want to try and get it at a lower price. You go to OTC desks and say, well, we can get you, $20 million a day without moving the markets or whatever, right? So it's about price points coming together, right? Whereas in, let's say, 20 years, getting one Bitcoin, might seem a very, very different thing from what it is today, because one Bitcoin might be worth $1 million, right? So someone coming in and say, hey, I want to buy one Bitcoin, like, well, you want to buy one Bitcoin? You just get out of here. Just stop being ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I think we're going to see the time, and not too far from now, where we're looking at Bitcoin heirs. Like, for real, a person is a Bitcoin heir. Maybe it's when it's for the 100 grand or something like that. But we're going to call them Bitcoin heirs, and it's going to be quite a big deal. And the hodler of today, who's got one or percentage of one or a couple, whatever, it makes you think of sats very, very differently. Like sats, stack sats, and chill. And it makes me think about, you had a cool video, and it's very recent, Bitcoin investing principles to build real wealth, on Crypto Lark YouTube channel. And you mentioned all the advantages of kind of running your own show, working towards your own financial independence and building wealth. And something that you mentioned is a mission is needed in life, and I've always thought a personal brand, like what you're about, it gives you a way to measure, like, well, what fits what I'm about? What does not fit what I'm about? And I think that a person who can somehow make their living in crypto, whether it's a YouTube channel with crypto, whether it's trading, however they do it, it's a great compass in life, because you can say that, hey, look, my mission, my brand, what I'm about is the peaceful revolution. That's my motivation. These aren't just sats. These actually, Bitcoin stops wars. Because really, when governments can't print money, they don't get to have wars. There's no 75 billion a day for a war if you really got to have it. You know what I mean? There's no 75 billion in Bitcoin a day for a war. There isn't. So governments all of a sudden get neutered. I mean, that's wonderful. What do you think of crypto neutering governments' abilities to do whatever they want, especially war?
It's the governments and the banks together, because the whole thing is you have a system that's over leveraged, right? It comes back to fractional reserve banking. It comes back to the ability of central banks to print money with zero recourse, right? And they get to front run everybody on it, which I think is it's ridiculous beyond belief. They get to print money. They get to have the advantage of printing money today at the perceived value of that money today, without inflation kicking in until after that money has been spent and diluted into the economy. So your government's front running you. It sucks. And the inflation rate, it exceeds, a savings account by about 1.9%, because most savings accounts are 0.0 something percent. It's so abysmally low to the point of being shocking. And when it comes down to the ability to print money for war, it's crazy. And look, obviously, it's accelerated by the fact that they can just print money willy-nilly, right? Back in the day, obviously, humans have been doing war for a very long time. If you go back and you look at ancient history, right, it was a bit different, because if you wanted to pay soldiers to go out and fight for you, you needed to have the money, because you couldn't, but then we actually started seeing the dilution of gold. We started seeing the dilution of silver coins, right? In the Roman Empire, they started doing that for this exact reason, right? They only had so much money, but they wanted to do more than their money was worth. So even back then, we started seeing those kind of situations come through. And that's why the ability to not do that with Bitcoin, Very interesting, right? And will we see Bitcoin become the global supreme currency? Hard to say, but certainly the monetary revolution that Bitcoin is sparking is going to have long-lasting impacts, because there's no reason for war in the year 2019. You know, the people who think there's a reason for war, you've been lied to. You've been lied to. There hasn't been a call for going off and killing people for a long time. Almost every war is based on lies, right? And look, if someone's knocking on your door saying, hey, you know, we're going to come into your country and kill everybody, well, then you need to defend yourselves. But anybody who's gone off and attacked somebody, there's never been a reason for that. Whatever the reason, you know, your government told you, it's a lie. It's a lie. You don't need to be going off and killing these people in foreign countries, because it's almost always about someone at the top getting rich, and now it's about corporations getting rich and all this stuff. And it's a totally morally bankrupt system in the year 2019 that we're still bombing people all over the world.
Yeah, it's a real drag, because when I was a youngster, I was in the military for a few years, and you know, people often, I mean, I guess I'm proud of that. I did it when I was a kid. I said I'd do it, and I stayed my time, and I got out. But people will often, you know, since I was in the military, they say, oh, you know, my kids are going in the military. What do you think? And I always cringe. I'm like, oh, I know they want me to say that's great, yay, but I'm like, I always tell them, I'm like, oh. You know, I always have to find some kind way to pose it. You know, it's like, don't die for oil. Don't die for bankers. You're not fighting for freedom. You know, like, what are you really doing? You know, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's like, but the thing is, that is the nice thing about, well, people are coming into the crypto space. I really think nobody wakes them up to that global truth. Like you wake up like Neo, you know, and that pot opens and there's a scary thing, and then the next thing you know, you're flushed down the thing and you're in an Nebuchadnezzar, you know, and you know, like when Neo's laying there on the table, it goes, you know, why do my eyes hurt? And Neo says, because you've never used them. I mean, you start
Mm-hmm.
seeing with eyes you never had. And so that's one of the things that really just jazzes me about crypto. It's funny, but I really love trading. I really love dollar cost averaging. I really love the work that you're doing, because I think that any individual who wants to make the world a better place, it's hard. What do you do? You know, especially when you know you might be wrong, because anyone who hasn't been 100% wrong definitely had no intellectual courage in life, never believed in anything.
Yep.
So since you've been wrong and you know it, it's hard to put all your weight into something. You know, put your passion into making the world a better place. But I guess, you know, crypto would be the only thing I'm sure of as far as making the world a better place. So it's a great place that we find ourselves in, because I think it's, at least for me, something I can be sure of is good. Even though it's being co-opted, all kinds of stuff is happening. We have to avoid that negativity and just keep at it. I mean, keep the
Yep.
fight. And
Stacking sats and chilling.
keep stacking sats and chilling. Well, you have a course out that's on a nice playlist on your YouTube. So, and definitely that's something that I aim people at. I have to admit, I have never watched it. So,
Well, but you're not a beginner. The course is
yeah,
for beginners. The course
yeah,
is for somebody who's asking that question. What is a Bitcoin, right?
yeah.
How do I buy Bitcoin? How do I send it from point A to point B without making a terrible mistake? I literally walk people through, like, okay, here's how you send Bitcoin. Step A, step B, step C, step D, you know, right on down the way. And that's why it was designed for people who are total beginners. So,
And
you know,
how's that working? How's that being received? Like, what kind of feedback are you getting on that?
Not much. The videos have incredibly low views, unfortunately. I put it over on Udemy as well, and it's got a little bit of traction there. But yeah, definitely not as much traction as I would like to have seen with the course. You know, it still gets a few views now and then, but yeah, not much, unfortunately. YouTube is a pretty brutal algorithm master, in the sense that the weight of a video is put on basically the first 24 to 48 hours of performance, and after that, the likelihood that someone's going to see it in a search drops dramatically.
Yeah, it's funny with videos like that. We've collected a good number of interviews at this point, and it's funny how, you know, of course you have your first week after you put it up, it's always the best, tends to be, but then sometimes an interview that I've forgotten about, you look at your stats and you go, oh my God, it's got a couple thousand views this week. You never know. So it's funny.
Yeah.
I have a hope that actually will just continue to pick up. You never know, one day you're going to look and the numbers for it will be outstanding. So as we wrap things up, because I don't want to keep you too long, here's a wild question, just for fun.
Sure.
Maybe two. We'll do it quick.
All right.
So there was an article that came out. I think it was on Zero Hedge. I forget the source, but basically, I call it quantum fear we're seeing right now. So like Google has their quantum processor and this and that, and people are saying, oh, the banks are undone in privacy and Bitcoin, and there's no private keys. Someone wrote this article, and myself having a bit of knowledge about, chip architecture and things like that, I'm like, what a bunch of garbage. It's not rooted, as far as I'm concerned, in reality whatsoever. So what do you think about, like, I just call it quantum fear, all this techno fear that's out right now? Like, we're not going to be eaten by robots, and no, AI is not actually alive, and and things like that. It's like, but there seems to be the forces that be, maybe whatever it is trying to make us afraid of technology, or afraid, like you see somebody doesn't get a hearing aid because they're afraid the government's listening to them.
Look, it's like I say about all kind of conspiracy theory stuff. Unfortunately, because the governments have lied so many times, and it's well documented, it's not a conspiracy theory to say that the government has actual conspiracies against citizens. This stuff is incredibly well documented, well over history. Because that's happened, people trust things less and less and less. And when we see how deeply, big tech and government are embedded together and stuff like this, well, you should be concerned to an extent. Your privacy is under threat. But technology has an incredible ability to liberate us. And the question is, who has control of the technology? Because I am willing any day of the week to let everyone participate and make decisions versus a tiny group of insiders. Because that tiny group of insiders, they have their interests at heart, not yours, not the goodwill of the people, right? And that's where government has totally failed us, is that they don't have the interest of the populace in mind. Unfortunately, even though that's their job, they have special interests in mind. They defend industry. They give subsidies to the world's most profitable companies and all this stuff. And that's a broken system. I look at technology, and this is where people get kind of, hung up on like the dystopian versus utopian futures. Well, if we create this amazing technology and hand it all over to governments, yeah, you are looking at a dystopian future. If you create all this amazing technology and let people have that technology, you're looking at a utopian future. It really comes down to decentralization of power. And this is why the decentralization movement from Bitcoin right on out is so incredibly powerful. Decentralize your power grids, decentralize your money, decentralize your governance. That's important. Because when we have that decentralization of ideas and of freedom and all this stuff, the potential for humanity is just, it's exponential.
No, I like it. And that's really true. And as I do see people becoming, that there's a push to make people afraid of technology. And I just see it as another, power game. Keep them away from it, rather than, I look at it like Ethereum smart contracts and Singularity. I saw an article about auto loans. They're already using it for some international shipping, and I've seen it there. But the smart contracts are very interesting. They're going to get easier and easier to make, where they could just be part of a point of sale system. So basically, if you agree to pay, let's say in an Ethereum, you buy a car. Well, if you don't make your car payment, your car turns off. So some people look at that and go, oh, that's really terrible. Oh, well, it depends on how you look at it.
It depends. If you're paying your bills, it's not a problem, right? We're moving into a world that's just so exciting if we control it.
If we control it. And I think that is probably a great place to leave it, if we control it. Well, Crypto Lark, it's been amazing. Thanks so much for being on the show. We interview inspiring people to inspire others, and that's why we wanted to talk to you. And I'm sure this will inspire people who are in the crypto community especially, but I think also just as much people who are not. And if you're not, get involved. Join the peaceful revolution. Watch Crypto Lark. Just search for Crypto Lark on YouTube, and he's going to come right up, and we'll link to it in the show notes.
Thank you so much for having me on. Absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Our pleasure.
You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A Radiant Creator isn't making a living, they are living.